Hey, everybody. I'm Terry Davis, and I have experience with union busters going back all the way before most of you were born. And I have with me Diego Ramirez, who has very recent experience with union busters. And so I think we're going to tell you about it and remind you that union busting really hasn't changed much over the years. They're basically doing the same things that they did before. Diego, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Diego. So I recently went through an election campaign at my Trader Joe's in the Lower East Side. And unfortunately, we did not win our election this time. It was very close with a tie, which unfortunately does not count as majority for the union. But I'm more than happy to be able to share with you guys like what we went through, what we experienced. Hopefully you can take from that and use it to have a stronger campaign from yours. It's a great learning experience altogether. So yeah, I'm excited to share that with y'all.
So we're calling this session inoculation. So inoculation is not a shot in the arm, but it works kind of like a shot in the arm in the sense that it is preparation for what you can expect when you, as Brian said, move into action. There is going to be an anti-union campaign, and it's pretty ugly. We're going to describe the ugliness of it. And it's so ugly, in fact, that a lot of people feel, well, we don't want to prepare people for that. We don't want to talk about it. It's going to discourage them, and it's going to set a negative cast on our campaign. And the best kind of image I want to put in your minds of why you have to inoculate. Imagine that you're out on the sidewalk and a friend of yours is right underneath a balcony, and you see somebody that is about to throw a refrigerator off that balcony and land on your friend. And are you going to tell them? Are you going to move them out of the way? You are. So same way with your campaign. You know it's coming, so you want to be prepared, and you want to tell your coworkers about that refrigerator that is going to land on you. And I think with this question of preparation, Diego, do you want to explain how at Trader Joe's, how important it was?
Yeah, so first and foremost, like inoculation is going to be your strongest tool against union busting. Management is really going to try to prey on people who they feel like are less informed and more vulnerable. So if you can prepare those people for what's about to come, it'll kind of fortify their defenses. And the biggest I feel like kind of like thing that they try to do is catch people off guard. And if you prepare them, it kind of neutralizes that. And yeah, even people that we did to kind of emphasize the importance of it, the people that we did inoculate came up to us and said, had you not prepared us for this, it would have swayed us and they would have gotten to us. But because we knew what you had told us, we were better prepared to handle it. So, it's a really, really, really important. And like Terry said, even though it kind of might be like not the most pleasant conversation, kind of like telling people that these unpleasant things are going to come. It's just very, very important and can be crucial to winning your campaign and having success in that.
When you come out into the open in your workplace, the first thing that your boss is going to do is to bring it, well, not necessarily bring in, but go to a union buster and learn how to fight the union. And these union busters are highly paid. They make hundreds of dollars an hour, and they come in and train the management in anti-union talking points and in a whole strategy of building up. So if you have a union election coming, they're going to build up day by day until it reaches a sort of high point or a low point, depending on your perspective, right before the election. And basically, the anti-union campaign takes over the workplace, right, Diego?
Oh yeah, it becomes it's very hard. It's kind of like I always say going into the battlefield like every day, but they want that. They want there to be conflict, and that's kind of part of their overarching union busting scheme.
So as Diego said before, one of their goals is to win over the middle group. And you'll find, when you come out in the open, you have a majority, but some of those people are strong and some of them are not so strong. They will focus on the not so strong people, the people who aren't quite sure, or they're not so bold. And you may not even, as a leader, you may not even experience the anti-union campaign, but be sure that those shaky people, they're going to experience it. The other thing that they will do is just provide lots of propaganda. They might put it on the walls. They might put it in the lunchroom. And I wanted you to see this one. This is from a recent campaign at Chipotle. And I think it demonstrates a bunch of different things about anti-union propaganda. First of all, that was a Teamster campaign. If you'll see up at the top, they're talking about the Teamsters. They will always talk about the union that you've got as though it's the worst one possible. And so in this case, it's the Teamsters. And at the bottom, particularly egregious point, only 6% of US workers are unionized. Are 94% of US workers wrong? Okay, so this might make you mad, but it might persuade somebody else. So be aware. One thing that you will see in an anti-union campaign is what we call captive meetings. And that means they bring workers together under some pretext or other so that they can get either management or in some cases the union buster himself or herself to give them basically a script of anti-union stuff. And I think, and Diego, you can say if this was your experience, but I think usually they start out, oh, there's a union has come around. We want to be very nice to you and tell you all about it since you may not know much about unions. We want to be sure that you hear the truth. And they sound very helpful, very unbiased. Right, Diego?
Yeah. They very want to like kind of paint themselves as the welcoming party. And I think part of it is a big part of it too, is to make sure people with questions go to them instead of like, actual organizers and stuff. And I want to say, I think they were smart in our case in that they didn't necessarily give any like specific lies while there were organizers present in our big huddles, but they created these kind of like segues for people to go to them and like have their secret little captive meetings off to the side. But yeah, they really just they try to funnel people towards their way and then also kind of use it as an opportunity to paint like the union as the aggressors. Like, oh, we know there's been a lot of conflict. We want you guys to feel safe with us. And I think another like they'll give platforms to anti-union people to kind of give a spiel, but if a pro-union person tries to speak, they kind of try to shut it down. Like there was one case in ours where one of our organizers tried to kind of like counterpoint someone. And one of our managers was like, oh, we just want to keep this an uplifting, positive huddle. So like, can we not do that here? After somebody had just gone like on an aggressive rampage against the union. So yeah, if they'll give these platforms to other people, but usually not to anybody pro.
So one of the things that you mentioned, Diego, is the question of whether you have strong union people in that particular meeting group, if there's more than one, which there usually is. If it's a fairly large workplace, there'll be, or a different shift. If your group has strong union supporters in it, those people can really make a difference. If only people who talk in those captive meetings is the boss and the union buster, you've got a real problem because that's all people hear. And so you want to try to make sure that in every meeting you have somebody who's willing to come in prepared to say something, to kind of break up the narrative and to remind people that the union is them, not an outsider. And because they will always try to third party the union. If people do speak up, it's very effective. If they don't, and not only is it effective, but it can backfire because the boss really doesn't know much about the union. They've just gotten the talking points. But if you challenge them, sometimes they can really make an idiot of themselves. I want to play this audio. It's actual audio of a captive audience meeting in which the workers did, I think, a really good job of intervening in the captive meeting.
You know, like I said, the purpose of my visit out here is purely informational. When we get to the vote, whichever way you vote, like, we're still working together regardless of how it goes afterwards. Like,
Yeah, that's already been decided.
Yeah, we've already all decided that we want a union. We wouldn't have signed cards if we weren't informed.
So what folks sometimes won't tell you that there's three parties involved. There's the employees. That's one party. One party is the company, management, right? And the other party is the union, which you can choose to have represent you or not.
We are the union.
Yeah, we are the union. I mean, we don't need the election. You guys could just recognize the union.
You're absolutely correct. So in the world of what we'll call third party vendors, your company can decide it's no longer a value proposition for them to work in there, right? And they could say, we're not going to do Google Fiber anymore, as an example.
So
Are you willing to put that in writing?
Yeah, are you saying that if we unionize, we're going to close?
No, not at all.
It sounds like
No,
you're
it
insinuating.
sure
Yeah.
No. See, I don't know how you heard that. Right?
I heard it. Yeah,
if you unionize, like, it's perfectly within the right of the client, not BDS, to say, well, we're going to go look for another vendor.
Right. But it is illegal to threaten.
I'm not
Action.
threatening anybody. That wasn't
Okay.
a threat. If you perceive that as a threat,
I'm just making sure you're aware.
no, and I understand that.
So what we're asking for here is why we as a collective group decided to go through this process is so that those decisions aren't being made above our heads.
This negotiation will happen whether we're talking to Google or whether you guys are talking to Google.
The bottom line, we would like these negotiations to have more of our input either from the bottom line. If we have to employ representation, we will. I mean, that's why we're all sitting here wearing red meat. We love the product. We love our jobs.
Helping people.
We like helping people, that sort of thing. We're excited for our election. We're excited to be formally recognized, and we appreciate you guys' time.
So that was really, you could see that the workers just took that over. Okay, the captive meeting is one strategy, but as the election draws near, they will rely more and more on their favorite tactic, which is the one-on-one. And the one-on-one is a really creepy tactic because when you have one boss and one worker, the worker can feel isolated and have less power, obviously. And usually that worker is, as we talked about before, one of these not quite secure in their union support, so they are vulnerable. And in a one-on-one, the boss can make illegal threats and illegal promises, and there are no witnesses. They may not do right out illegal threats and promises, but they will make hints of promotion, hints of wage increases, hints of workplace closing. Please, like, oh my God, we've always gotten along. Don't get somebody to come between us. Diego, do you want to talk about some of your experiences at Trader Joe's with one-on-ones?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to kind of circle back to the audio and kind of like affirm that those workers were definitely inoculated, and that's why they were able to kind of fire back with such strong and like secure answers. And so just to kind of re-emphasize that point of like inoculation is your strongest tool, because when they put you in that position, you're then prepared to handle that. And you could tell it was tripping them up. They probably didn't expect these workers to kind of like have these answers or responses and not be shaken. But yeah, so the one-on-one was kind of one of the most major tactics I'd say that was used at our store. Trader Joe's kind of really brands itself on being the big personalities, being very personable. So that's what attracts a lot of workers there. And so I feel like our management kind of preyed on that and really just try to like be like, like we're here for you. I'm here for you as a person. And they want to seem very cool and casual about it to try to lower people's guards. But they would, use that opportunity to kind of say things like, I think our captain, our head manager, told somebody that, if you get something like union benefits, we're going to have to take away other things. And that if we could have had these benefits already, we would have already given them to you. A union isn't going to give you what you don't already have. And then some other kind of like just really like dark stuff too. Like one of our managers had pulled aside one of our other coworkers and told her that another coworker who she was close with would not be able to get a promotion he's been really wanted if they unionized. So, it's just kind of like using interpersonal relationships, like even if it's not a direct threat to you, kind of like threatening somebody else that you may be close with, saying, oh, they're not going to get these benefits, they're not going to get promoted. Think about your other coworkers, like, this may work out for you, but it's not going to work out for this person that you're close with. So yeah, it's very sick, and it's sad and it's disturbing, but if you have people that are prepared to kind of combat this, then when they get pulled aside into these one-on-ones, and more often than not, some of these like other managers also might not know what they're talking about. And if you could shut it down right away, it kind of, lessens their strength in that.
So, and I'm pretty sure that they didn't give you this treatment because you were identified as one of the leaders. So you didn't have to deal with it. But one of the things that the leaders have to do in the case of the one-on-ones is to keep their eyes open. Because if you see somebody having a one-on-one, or let's say somebody's called into the office, or you see a supervisor hanging around their workstation and talking, that's a one-on-one. It's of the greatest importance to get back to that person. And the reason Diego knows about what happened in those one-on-ones is because they did follow up and found out what happened. And you need to talk to that person to bring them back to reality. Maybe have more than one person talk to somebody who had a real intense one-on-one. They're trying just to chip away, worker by worker, chip away at your majority. Anything else, Diego, you want to say about the one-on-one before we go on?
Yeah, I think kind of like, really check in with people afterwards, because they may not always come up to you, but it's important that you do make yourself available. But if you do witness this, kind of check in with them, because yeah, we did that with people, found out what they were saying. And also like there were instances where people were given misinformation, like they were told that they would not be able to transfer, that they wouldn't be able to call out of work, like just this really crazy stuff. But when you have somebody who's in a position of power telling you these things, not everybody might have that inherent questioning of authority that like we as organizers kind of like have. So we were able to kind of dispel that and to know actually that's not true, and it helps redirect them.
As things heat up, it's possible that the boss may really go all out and engage in some practices that may be legal or may be borderline or may be very illegal, such as disciplining union activists, even firing somebody, always with a pretext, threatening, as you heard them flirting around with that in that captive meeting, flirting around with the possibility that the workplace would close. These things can happen. They don't happen in every campaign, but when they do, you need to be prepared. And one of the ways of being prepared is to document everything that they do if it seems like it might be illegal. As you may already know, it's illegal to make threats. It's illegal because of the union. It's illegal to make promises of what they'll do without the union. It's illegal to discriminate against people for union activity, but that doesn't mean that they won't do it if they think they can get away with it. And Diego, can you talk about the documentation that you did and what it led to at Trader Joe's?
Yeah, so document everything is extremely important, because you can file what is called an unfair labor practice, or ULP. These are, the things that are illegal for management to do. Like one of our biggest things was you are allowed to put up the union pro-union flyers and stuff like in the break room and common areas and stuff. So we would put up our literature, and it's illegal for them to take it down, but that didn't stop them, and it became like almost a game of cat and mouse. Every day we'd put up a flyer, and every day they would take it down. So anytime we saw them taking it down, we took note of it, who it was, the time. We took pictures of when we put the stuff up and then when it was down. And you send these things to the NLRB, which is where all kind of like the big legal processes happen. And then they, kind of file these ULPs. And the more you have, the stronger a case you have against the company. Because again, these things are illegal. And even though they are still doing them and think that they can get away with them, the more kind of like concrete evidence you have that they're doing it, it will hurt them in their chances and will help you to hopefully, get your union move forward. So yeah, just anything that might even seem like anything that might seem suspicious or slightly wrong, just it's never hurts to document it. And there are protected rights too, like you can record like these conversations and stuff. That's how we found out about one of our one-on-ones. Yeah, so it's always good to kind of have a documentation of everything.
And I just want to mention, some of you have probably heard about this recent decision from the NLRB about called CEMEX. And it was a very good decision for workers. And it means that unfair labor practices, like we were talking about, that are done during a campaign might be, there'll be the labor, without going into great detail, the labor board might be willing to immediately issue a bargaining order if they're severe enough. Now, it's important in all of this that you don't get all caught up in thinking that the labor board's going to save you. The labor board is not going to save you. It might help you some at some point. It might not. But the thing that will save you is your solidarity with your fellow workers. And you want to, at all times, keep your positive campaign front and center. And always inoculate, always remind people, this is what we were talking about. It'll all be over shortly, but you have to be strong. As you approach the election day, things will be escalated into a frenzy. Work will almost be forgotten, and everything will be like crazy and chaotic. And then all that chaos will be blamed on the union by the boss. And Diego, when we talked earlier, it was so vivid to hear your description of that. So maybe you could share that.
Yeah, the days leading up and days of the election was very much just like chaos and like a lot of like intense emotions. I think what was interesting in our case was the way that management really utilized a lot of the anti-union coworkers. I think they realized that they could get away with kind of like allowing them to do the dirty work because there's no kind of like legalities concerning your own coworkers doing these things versus management doing it. So it was just people were like backing each other into corners, being like, you can't do this, like this is gonna ruin our jobs, ruin our lives. And again, it's targeting these people who maybe aren't so secure in their support. And even if it's just the emotional aspect of it, that discomfort was enough to get some people to not vote at all. So you really it's just going back again, like inoculation is the greatest defense that you can have, to prepare people for these things so they're not caught off guard, and you can kind of like build that barrier between you and somebody who might be trying to dissuade you. But yeah, it was unfortunate because there were some people who were just turned off by the pure chaos and discomfort of it all. So it's kind of important to prepare people for that so that maybe when it happens in the moment, they're not so dissuaded by just that. It kind of clouds their own judgment of like what they might actually believe in and know regarding the union.
So in hearing about all this, you may think, how could you possibly ever win in a situation like that? And I mean, Diego and their coworkers came within one vote of winning and may yet win at the labor board, but it is possible to win. And the way the strategy for winning is, first of all, you've got to keep your positive campaign going. You've got to remind people what they want a union for, that remind them about the fair treatment, the wage increases, the benefits, the scheduling, whatever the issues are that people are interested in. Keep those front and center. I wanted to describe a campaign that I worked on, oh my God, a long time ago. But we knew that the last week going up to the election, which was on Friday, we would have, they would be building escalation. So we decided to escalate too, and we had stickers. So each day we had a different issue. So on Monday, we had pensions. Everybody wore a sticker saying, we want pensions. And then on Tuesday, we had a different color sticker that said, we want a wage increase. I forget what the issues were. We had 5. And every day people put on the stickers, but then they kept putting on more. And they would wear, by Tuesday, they had on 5 or 6 stickers. Then on Wednesday, we had a new one. And on Friday, it was respect. And people wore tons of stickers. They made hats out of them. And one woman covered herself in so many stickers that they called her Big Bird. She was just completely invisible behind all the stickers she was wearing. That was fun. And it kind of got everybody involved in having fun with the stickers. And they paid less attention to the boss's campaign. You want to have rallies. You want to have people wearing T-shirts like those people in the audio that were wearing their red T-shirts. You want to express and show solidarity, because that is what will give people the confidence to get through the hell that they are experiencing.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that too, like, yeah, we had buttons for people to wear, and that's a way to identify, who is with you on this. And we planned like a red shirt day too, and also activities outside of work. Like we had like 2 like kind of pizza parties where people could come together, and these things they build morale, they get people amped up, excited, and you need that, especially amidst kind of all the chaos and like aggression that's taking place at work. You really need to remind people like, hey, we're in this for a good cause, and we're proud of this, and we're happy to be doing that. There's a reason why we're putting ourselves through this, and it's because we believe in this. And you have to make sure that you remember to kind of like reaffirm that and keep people feeling good about what they're doing, because it's scary, and it's as prepared as we thought we were for it to happen. It didn't make it any less scary or any less difficult to go through. So yeah, definitely, I like to fight fear with solidarity and fun. It's true, keep people morale and spirit strong all throughout.
Yeah, so just to emphasize that point, you've got, it's the good people against the bad people. It's one side is sowing division, and the other side is expressing solidarity and hope. So just bear that in mind, that you can't have only the one side. You've got to have your side. It's got to be expressed. Okay, we want to show you something that is usable. It's also, you may have seen this before, but if you haven't, or if you have, you should consider using it with your co-workers, because it's a great way to kind of work your expertise up on union busting propaganda. And this takes, it's amazing, this was made a long time ago, and yet these are the things that every union buster brings up. And so if you can work out some good, snappy responses to these issues, you will be well prepared to inoculate your coworkers. So Diego and I we're going to practice. We have not told each other what we're going to use, so this is going to be kind of random. So, okay, Diego, shall I go first and be the boss, and you can be the worker?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, please give us another chance. Come on, you've got our attention now. We know what you want. Give us another chance. Don't let this union come in and ruin our relationship.
Well, this union could actually be our chance to work together on these things. We're not doing it to fight back. We're doing it so that we can work with.
Great. Okay. So now you get to be the boss and I get to be the worker.
All right. Oh, yes. Listen, if you guys unionize, us managers are going to be taken out of the equation. Our jobs are going to become obsolete, you know? Think about us.
Oh, you poor people. That's such a shame. I don't think you can name one single workplace where they got rid of managers when the union came in. So don't worry, you're perfectly safe, but the difference will be that we'll have representation. So that just gives you some ideas of how to fool around with this bingo card. Just to remind you, these are the points that we want to make.